the main is number to take the first step. So if you don't take the step, you will always just keep thinking, shoulda, woulda, all those kind of things. I should have done this. I would have done this. And so I think you have to take the first step, but at the same time, and then after that, you have to be very flexible and you have to be persistent, don't give up and just keep meandering through, because it's going to be a roller coaster ride. One day you'll feel high, next day you'll feel low, because you were expecting customer to sign up, they don't sign up. You're expecting an investor to invest in, they don't invest, or things like that. But
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Naveen Bisht. And Naveen, just as a quick introduction, so went to the high school in the Himalayas, did an undergraduate in engineering, and then came to the U.S. to study a master's, and I think at least started or got a PhD at Santa Barbara as well. Worked in Silicon Valley for about 4 years and wanted to do a startup, so started a software security company with a friend for about 3 years, and then they sold off to Novell right at in the 1999s, and then started another company. Invested in some other companies, and then also started recently a company in cybersecurity, and he'll give a bit more details as to what he's doing now. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Naveen.
Thank you, Devin. I'm really excited to be here and share my journey or any other questions you may have.
Absolutely excited to have you on. So I just gave a quick run through of a much longer journey. So why don't we go back in time a bit? Tell us a little bit about going to high school in the Himalayas and how your journey got started there.
Yeah, that's a very good, the part of Himalaya that I grew up in, it's a beautiful area. It's about 7,000 feet of the ocean level, small town, nice, beautiful. I call it mini Lake Tahoe. The place is called Nainital, Nainital. For those who are interested, who love to travel around the world, they can check it out. They'll see a lot of beautiful lakes, hiking, etc. So, after my high school, so I went to one of the top 6 schools in those days, which is to one of the pretty high ranked up school called Birla Institute of Technology and Science, to do my undergrad in mechanical engineering, master's in chemistry. It was a dual degree program, and then I came here to do my master's.
Just one question for you, just as before we dive too far into your journey. So, got the undergraduate in engineering and doing that. What made you decide to come to the U.S. to study your master's? Was it great programs? Always wanted to live in the U.S. Got a good opportunity, or kind of what pulled you to the U.S.?
Yeah, very good question, Devin. Actually, to be honest, when from high school, I call it like, when you look at my journeys, just dots just started happening and they connected, if you look back in hindsight. So from high school, I ended up being in one of these top schools, and I never had thought of coming here or anything like that. But I noticed a lot of folks, wanted to come and pursue their graduate studies, because obviously U.S. institutions are, they're obviously the top of the schools in the world in terms of new research and, for your further studies. And so everyone still today, and everyone loves to come here and study. So that was just like a lot of my classmates, they were applying, and so same thing. I thought, I'm not ready to work yet right after school, so let me apply for some graduate programs. I ended up being here.
No, that makes sense. And so now you say, okay, I'm gonna come to the U.S. I think that's where the opportunity and where I'd like to study and do the master's. And so you come do the master's, and I think you started a PhD, is that right? Or did a PhD?
Yes. Yeah, I got my master's degree at Texas Tech University. And then actually before that, I landed up in Minnesota at Minnesota State University. I spent a year there. Beautiful place, learned right in the heart of middle of the United States, as heartland, as you call it. And so which was a very good experience, lots of good friends. And from there, then I just decided to move to Texas Tech to get the master's degree there. And so felt that was still, more comprehensive program from what I was trying to accomplish. And I just spent a year there, got my degree, and then I applied to 2 schools at USC and UC Santa Barbara. And UC Santa Barbara looked beautiful right on the beach, and they sent me this, the Regents Fellowship and the assistance, which I ended up being there. So I spent a year there for PhD program, and then I realized, I wanted to go do a little like internship for 3 months, and then decided, I wanted to take a break. So I wasn't sure. I wanted to, at least get some industry experience. I had been in the college for almost 9 years. So from there, I ended up being in Silicon Valley and just then didn't go back. I mean, even though I think I could have gotten another master's degree, but that was fine.
No, and that makes sense. So
Yeah.
you get the degree coming out of school. How did you kind of land the first position, and what made you to go towards that initial position?
Yeah, so the position was just like, through networking, I decided in summer, just through some friends who were here in Bay Area, just contacts from me here and there. So one of my friends just called me one day, said, "Hey, we have a new position for this process engineering." And I had this background in, engineering as well as math, computer science, and statistics background. Just that they needed something in that area. And so I interviewed with them and they offered me a job. So that's I just ended up being here.
Hmm. All right. So now, and so and I think when we talked before, you worked in Silicon Valley for about 4 years before you kind of got the startup entrepreneurial bug and wanted to do your own thing. And so you started a software security company with a friend. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, as once you come to Silicon Valley, I feel the environment is so stimulating, right? Just the kind of people you meet from all over the world. Like the company I joined was a startup itself, just 2 year old, but they were growing, doing well. So you kind of learn how they're, adding up these customers, building these products. So it's kind of exciting. And then also, I just felt like I wanted to do something on my own. And I guess sometimes when you're by yourself, since I'm the first one who just landed up in US and not like, it was planned, so there's no restriction, right? Like sometimes when you have family, peer pressure, okay, go work, don't go jump into these startups, risky and all that. So I call it fear of that. So, and I felt like, why not just try it out and see what happens. So I worked at two companies, like I said, one company 3 years, second company for 2 years, which was to get experience working with a lot of customers. So that also gave me a lot of exposure because this was in those days, they were building these magnetic heads for the disk drives, and they used to do a lot of manufacturing in Far East, like Thailand, Malaysia. So I used to travel a lot with the customers. So that was a very good experience right early on, right? So, but then after 2 years of having this experience with the customers, I realized, okay, I got the customer side experience. On the supplier side, I had worked in the earlier on in the process engineering. I felt I kind of got a good deal on how I can deal with the customers. And so that's when I decided I wanted to start something, and I wanted to start something in software area, go back.
No, it makes sense. So now you get into okay, I'm going to do software. I'm going to do the startup, going to do the software, cybersecurity, doing it with my friend. Think it's a good opportunity. So, or how did that go? I mean, at one point, I think when we talked, you got acquired by Novell after a few years of doing it. Was that a good thing? Was it one where, was a great opportunity and you're glad you did it? Or was it, hey, we got in after 3 years, we didn't want to be an entrepreneur anymore, so we sold it for what we could, or kind of, how did it go?
No, it went very well. I mean, obviously the idea was at that point, back in mid-90s, around 95, this whole internet thing started at that point. There was a company called Netscape, which came out with this browser. And obviously today, most of the folks use Chrome and Firefox and Explorer, right? But then Netscape was the first company. And with that, this whole thing started like as if there's this new horizon, this whole internet thing could do so many things. So me and my friend who was in school with me in Santa Barbara, and he was working actually at Novell itself, and he had a good background in networking. We decided we should do something in that area. And so we just picked up this problem of the two issues which in order to utilize the internet was the access as well as security. So we focused on the security part, and we created this firewall product with the Kaya software. In fact, we got 12 patents also. In 3 years, we raised some angel money, and then we decided we're getting these offers to acquire. We had tons of awards for the company, top, hot startup, top products, all those number of awards we raked in. We had about 400 customers, couple of these OEM deals we were working on. One of them was in Novell, and in the process, they also, they said, hey, how about you be part of this one? And we felt that was a good decision, and also good for us first, we did very fast. I mean, fast meaning obviously 3 years, but still, for us as entrepreneurs, I think get some security under the belt, I call it, right? Overall, financially and otherwise.
No, it makes sense. So you sell it off to Novell, that's your kind of your first startup. You're doing it with your business partner. So kind of after you're getting done with, after you sold off your first company and you're just at the turn of the century and coming into the 2000s, what did you do next? Where you're saying, hey, love startups, I'm going to do my next big business and I got a great idea and I'm going to do that. Or, hey, startups are hard, just put in, several years into doing that. I'm going to take a break. Or kind of what was that next step after selling off the first startup you did?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, once you get into the startup mode and you're still pretty young enough, so you feel like okay, you want to do something again more exciting. So I did take a break of 6-7 months, and then in the process, we set up a small angel fund with another friend, and we did make number of these angel investments. And then I started the second company called Nina Networks, which was focused on this hot trend, which is coming in at that point, optical networking. And obviously, since I had a great success right, several months ago. So we got the venture funding right off the bat, with about 15 million, and we got started with the team. And that was my second startup, which went through obviously a lot of roller coaster ride because the telecom, all this internet thing busted in 2001 to 2003, 4 time period. So we had to survive through, but luckily we had raised enough money because before the whole market collapsed in 2001, December, we had raised another 40 million. So we kind of survived through the whole team of, even though we had built about team to over 150 people or so within a year, then we had to kind of cut down and manage through the whole process.
No, it makes sense. So now you're doing all that, and I think amidst all of that, you started the other company. You also invested in other companies for a period of time.
Yes, for a few years, because just on the side, it's like kind of angel investments and working with a number of entrepreneurs. So that's what I did, and there's another lots of learning experience, and obviously it's fun always to work with a lot of these smart folks, and obviously you learn a lot because a lot of them go bust, and then some of them obviously do very well. So it was a great experience from both sides.
So now, and just kind of to give an idea of, did you invest in one company and, it was a terrible, thing that you would never do again, or you invest in multiple companies and some were good, some were hit or miss, or kind of, what level did you get into in investing in other companies and working with them and helping them out?
So early on, it was more because I was busy with my own startup, but it was more like some people you just help as an advisor, but really I wasn't actively involved with any of those, right? It was just angel investments like a lot of folks do today. And so number of companies, most of the companies busted because what happened was that 2001 to 5 time period, like I said, that telecom internet burst, even a lot of companies went bankrupt. A large company like WorldCom, I don't know if you remember, so they used to be a telecommunications carrier. And so there were good few companies who survived through and they did very well. And a number of them, even though they were very well funded, they also closed. So it was a mix of whole experience, whether do or not. Like I said, if that's the thing happens in angel investment anyway, not necessarily all of them will work out. And at the same time, what you think, what you're investing in may turn out to be totally different than how that company builds out, and they can be still be very successful.
Makes sense, and sounds like it's a fun part. I always think always look, and I love startups and small businesses, so I always wanted to always have the desire to do it on my own, but I also think it would be fun to be able to get in the mode of investing in others and seeing if you can help them to grow the company and make it better, and play that role as well. So now, as you went through that phase, and you kind of did the other startup, you're investing in their companies. I think pulling it a bit towards the future, towards the present day. At some point, I think your current business, you're doing again, kind of in the cybersecurity realm or in security. So how did you kind of make that transition, and how did that kind of bring you to where you're at today?
I mean, in majority of mine was still doing startups on my own, not like really investing. So just to be clear, right? There was just more like a side, think of a little bit of a hobby kind of a thing. So still I was doing my startup. And then after the second one, after 2007, I had left because we had turned it public through, and then I helped another small company in security space. Then we had this 2008 bust, right? Then me and my current VP of engineering in the current company, Akitra, which is a cybersecurity compliance, automation, AI-based and cloud-based company. So I had started with him in back in 2012 to do something like I call it, the real-time mobile infrastructure platform for e-commerce, and which we built up the product to where within about 2.5 years, and we decided we should sell the company. We had just bootstrapped it, me and him and a few other folks, and then we sold it off to another private company, and that's when I started the current company called Akitra. And in between, I have done like I have another service company, service meaning software development services company back in 2011 called Orange Technologies. I co-founded with a base in India to provide this development from there, because these days, even finding talented folks not only is hard here, as well as they're very expensive. So in the early phases of startups, you have only a certain amount of money, so you want to be able to manage it very economically and be able to deliver your product, right? And then, of course, later on, you kind of start adding up globally as you get the traction with the customers and you raise more capital to expand on that. So yeah, so that's kind of the story. And this current company back in 2015, we started looking into it. The idea was to use artificial intelligence to basically to the cybersecurity use cases. So I felt this will be a great area, and there was a huge, huge trend going on. Then how AI can help it, which obviously today is very obvious with so many companies being very successful in that area.
So now, and that was, you mentioned 2015, 2016. So now kind of, fast forwarding a bit to today, where does that put the company? Is it still going? Is it successful? Is it becoming bigger? Are you getting traction? Is it one where it's been ups and downs and you're trying to figure out where the place or how to position it, or kind of give everybody an idea of kind of where that puts it, everything today?
Yeah, this is going pretty good. So back, like I said, in the early on couple of years, I just spent time to figure out what area, how to focus, and experimenting, right? That's what you do, especially in these high-tech startups. And then back in 2017 onwards, now right now, we're about 40 folks, and it's early stages of, and so we have very good, traction coming with the customers in the products we are delivering, these compliance automation products for cloud services companies, as well as the cybersecurity product line for asset management and discovery using AI to detect the anomalies or the threats, etc. So it's very good. We're really excited. I'm really excited about it. Very good product market fit, and really enjoying it, and just continue to help grow it.
Awesome. Well, that's definitely exciting. That it's always interesting. You do your first startup, and if you do subsequent ones, is, hey, was that my one-off, the one that I'm going to be successful with, and I not to be repeated, or can you successfully do or start and grow different companies? It sounds like certainly the latter for you, which is definitely exciting. So yeah. Well, as we kind of bring that to the where you're at today, and kind of what your journey's been along, it's a great point to transition to the two questions I always ask at the end of the podcast. And just as a heads up for the audience, after we wrap up the normal portion of the episode, we are also doing a bonus question where we talk a little bit about intellectual property. So if that's of interest, make sure to stay tuned after the normal episode to hear that conversation as well. But before we jump to that, normal two questions I ask at the end of each podcast. We'll jump to the first one, which is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
So let me answer the worst decision wise. The question number one. So by the way, I have a blog. I used to write for this entrepreneur focused magazine back in 2011 to 15. It's just called 4kta.com. So there are a lot of these articles I have written around entrepreneurship. 4KTA stands for 4 key takeaway points. So basically, I think you might have also heard, whenever you do a slide presentation, they say don't go more than 3 or 4 points. People are not going to remember. So that's how I came up with that idea. So I have this website, which I haven't updated recently, but I may do at some point, where it has a lot of this information of my own learnings. So one of the thing in that is, like when you say talk about worst decision. So I've written my own journey from these companies, what I've gone through. And so, which obviously I feel very lucky and fortunate to have been able to do that. Is one of the first topic was, how do you, when you get started, how do you form your team, right? So in team formation, I call it, there are four basic, these KTAs, right? 4 key takeaway points. One is chemistry between the other co-founders. Second is having the trust, and third is skill set and adaptability. Fourth is positive attitude and positive energy. I feel like these kind of make up the part of your team, because you want to make sure, let's say if I'm starting a company, mostly in high tech, you will always generally you have co-founders, right, or the early team members who are complementing you in their skill sets. And one of the things, like for example, I talk about in how do you detect it early on, because you don't have much data that how whether this person is right or not right. So many times what happens is I look at very small cues. Let's say you're early on, you're starting, and you have the person say, hey, let's meet tomorrow. And if the person does he or she they want to meet you right away or not, or they say, okay, no, let's meet out 2 days. So you kind of start looking for these clues, right? So the worst decision, going back to all these topics, is mainly me not following my own decision, those kind of my learnings and criteria in my later part of some other startups. So that's what I would call it. Worst decision, not to follow your own learnings and the advice you're imparting, right?
No,
And yeah, so that's kind of what I mean. If your audience is interested, they can go to that 4kta.com, see a lot of articles, and they can, and obviously there's a lot of material on the internet by other highly successful entrepreneurs too. And second question you had was
yeah,
more on,
that was a great question or great answer on the first question. Definitely insightful on the mistakes, but also kind of what you learned from it. Second question I always ask is, if you were talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
well, the key piece of advice is, I would say, the main is number to take the first step. So if you don't take the step, you will always just keep thinking, shoulda, woulda, all those kind of things. I should have done this. I would have done this. And so I think you have to take the first step, but at the same time, and then after that, you have to be very flexible, and you have to be persistent. Don't give up and just keep meandering through, because it's going to be a roller coaster ride. One day you'll feel high, next day you'll feel low, because you were expecting customer to sign up, they don't sign up. You're expecting an investor to invest in, they don't invest, or things like that. But so that would be my advice. And like also keep listening to like podcasts you're doing, right? For example, this is amazing because you're bringing in all these entrepreneurs, sharing their different nuances of their lessons and successes. And even I do a like monthly virtual story for a nonprofit or called My Story, where I'm bringing these entrepreneurs who have sold their companies 100 million plus. They share 1 hour journey in, this is a local organization called Thai Silicon Valley, ThaiSV.org. So they have this My Story. I just did a few weeks ago. I'll be doing again. Same thing. Like, so what that does is I think they're very inspirational, and plus you learn a lot of these real pragmatic advice and nuances which you won't read anywhere in the books, right? So, because every startup you have basic things. Okay, write a business plan. These are the 8, 9 things you got to do. But the thing is, when you go through a journey, there are a lot of nuances which you have to kind of experience or learn it from others' experiences. So I think I would say just don't give up. But take this first step, and then keep listening to inspiring talks like yours and others. There are so many of them. That would be my advice.
No, and I think that's great advice. I mean, I think a lot of times it's easy to make excuses as to why now is not the right timing, or why you need something else, or don't have the right resources. And yet taking that first step, getting it going and getting things kicked off does more to lead you towards success than, any amount of planning or thinking it through, or, otherwise getting things in place. I think just taking that initial plunge is a great piece of advice. So, well, as we wrap up, and before we talk about the bonus question, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a client, they want to be a customer, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, best. I mean, they can connect me on LinkedIn, Naveen Bisht. I mean, that's how we connected, Devin. And then obviously for my current company, they are interested, they are entrepreneurs, they're selling any software as a service kind of services. So they can come to akitra.com, akitra.com. And as you can see, I can help them. Obviously, I'd love to help them out as an entrepreneur in their early stages of the company. If they need all these do these compliance requirements for SOC 2, ISO 27001, and HIPAA, which are required for selling into those kind of customer bases. And if you want to learn more, 4kta.com, attend my stories, attend yours. That's it.
Awesome. Well, definitely great ways to connect, and definitely encourage everybody to do so. Well, Well, with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, just go to inventiveguest.com and apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click subscribe so you know when all of our awesome episodes come out, and leave us a review so everybody else can find all of our awesome episodes as well. Last but not least, you ever need help with patents, trademarks, or anything else along your journey, feel free to reach out to us. Just go to strategymeeting.com and grab some time with us to chat. Well, with that, now that we've wrapped up the normal portion of the episode, it's always fun to change gears a bit and talk a little bit about the area that I always find or love and enjoy, and certainly a passion of mine, which is intellectual property. So with that, we'll flip gears just a bit and turn it over to you to ask your number one intellectual property question.
Yeah, so that's very good, Devin. And I've been, like I said, every startup I have always filed for patents. And that's how I think we also had a discussion earlier. So my question would be is how do you help, the entrepreneurs, a lot of your listeners, obviously, who are entrepreneurs, to help them, help them, excuse me, help them provide the value of filing this whole, the patent process and everything in a very cost-effective way, because that's one of the things, because patents, that many folks don't file for it because it's going to be very costly. So I think you're doing a pretty good job. Maybe it might be great to.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Now I get to self-promote just a bit, but no, it's so, a few things that we do, and, I wouldn't claim that we are the only ones, but I think we do it pretty well, is one is we always offer flat fees, which is nice for any startup or small business, that you're not on an hourly, you're not at an open-end check, and hey, if we're going to do this, this is how much we cost. Another thing that we do is that we also, we have nice offices, but we don't have the downtown high-rise, immaculate offices that are costing a lot of overhead. We don't have a lot of partners that are eating into a lot of profitability and increasing rates. And with all of that, it allows us to offer more effective or competitive rates. So provide the same quality, but at, more competitive rates. A couple more things that we've implemented is one is we also offer a payment plan. So, we allow for our flat fees that you can split it up over 4 payments over 4 months. And so it allows to spread out that cost a bit. So it's not quite as, sticker shock in the wallet, because you're having to pay for it all up front. You're not having to pay for a sizable bill. So you know how much it's going to cost with the flat fee, and then how much it's going, or that you can split it up over a few months. The last thing that we more recently rolled out, which I'm pretty excited about, is we also do a DIY, what we're calling Snap Legal, which is a DIY legal service that allows people to, if they're not able to, and I still highly recommend doing the hiring an attorney and having them do it, because they're going to have the greatest level of experience. But we also get, if you're early enough stage and maybe you're very cash strapped, or you have a lot of things demanding your budget, you may not always be able to afford an attorney. So we set up for several of our different legal services that there's a DIY option where people can do it themselves and go down that route. And so it allows them to say, a lot of times is, hey, let's get this going, get something in place, allow you to at least get things kicked off and have a degree of protection. And then as you grow and as you get bigger and have an ability to afford an attorney, then you can go and actually hire an attorney to continue on with your portfolio. So great question. I love it. And that is one where we definitely try and do a lot because we're always looking to help startups and small businesses. And that's a few of the ways that we try and look to say, for small businesses, startups, and people that are on a shoestring budget or just getting started, what can we do to help them? So with that, appreciate the question, appreciate the time and sharing your journey. And we'll go ahead and wrap up for today and wish you the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you, Devin. And same to you here. And obviously we'll be in touch. Talk to you soon.